family, friends, the world, lovers, sisters, brothers. I would like to talk about something in Judaism that is very deep to my heart. That it says basically from the ethics of our fathers that we are to bless the bad as we are to bless the good, for all of it comes from Hashem. On this note, I would like to read into something that I wrote after thinking about it a lot in regards to anti-Semitism and how that ties into blessing the good and the bad and the bad and the good, as it all comes from Hashem. I posit that anti-Semitism is actually not irrational, but rather that it comes directly from God. And it is time we come out with the painful truth already, though most of you will detest me for it. I am so sick and tired of hearing about how anti-Semitism is how anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, when in truth most of us do not even sincerely devote even several years to knowing who and what God is. As I read the Torah and see over and over again the verses and chapters mentioning how the Israelites worshipped idol after idol, and the curses upon the Israelites that came upon them as a result of their idolatry, it seems to me that any idolatrous affair we Jews have had throughout the ages ultimately brought upon us the consequences of being hated, being enslaved, and being exiled. We claim to follow Torah and yet consistently remain unaware of ourselves being characters in the Torah's narrative, and thus we unconsciously repeat the Torah's themes of idolatry and the consequences thereof again and again. We cause the Torah's narrative to live over and over again, and each time with exactly the same result found in regards to our idolatrous ancestors. We make and follow idols and thus are scolded by God. That is the way that the Torah narrative is. That's the way that it is now with anti-Semitism. We thus need to awaken to how we cause ourselves to be hated, only for us to then point outwardly to the nations of the world who hate us. This is nothing new, as Torah shows us again and again. Our constant relationship with idolatry, only to blame others, reminds me of how the Republicans preach about how education and love for others needs to be taught at home to prevent school shootings, only for the Republicans to then scold the very Parkland kids speaking out and demanding for strong gun reform. This is a direct hypocrisy. On this note, it becomes so obvious why anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. For we as Jews have yet turned inwards and come to know ourselves and thus come to God again, via teshuvah. Teshuvah, the essence of return, to come within ourselves to know God. Thus, of course, the plagues God placed on us for our idolatry will not go away, and this has been the case from the Torah's narrative until now. You can rebel all you want, and as a matter of fact, that's exactly what the Israelites did. But ultimately, it is just an endless return through the same narrative over and over again. And it all brings me back to the same conclusion. Until we go inwards enough to experience our own demons and destroy them within ourselves with our own self-awareness, self-forgiveness, and self-love, we will always try slaying and criticizing these demons we see outwardly. We are the basis from which anti-Semitism comes from. For if we as Jews were to overcome our own inner demons through love, then we would cause the nations of the world to do the same. But until we learn this, well, every time you point the finger at someone else, just remember, 3 more are pointing back at you. See one? There's the other 3. As the Torah says in Deuteronomy 19:15, one witness shall not rise against a man for any sin or guilt that he may commit. According to 2 witnesses or according to 3 witnesses, only then shall a matter stand. 3 fingers, 3 witnesses. Etzba Elohim, the finger of God, created the heavens and the earth, just like it says in the Torah. Etzbaot, fingers. 3 witnesses. There is no coming into awareness without pain, and thus anti-Semitism is the exact suffering God has placed upon us, so that we will ultimately come into the darkest of darkness to find the light of truth within. Thus we can become the wounded healers of the world. But until then, as long as we follow after some light, some system written by men throughout the generations on this light outside of us, somewhere out there, as opposed to in here, then we shall never come into a true experience of God, and thus will only continue worshiping idols, which will only cause anti-Semitism to keep on rising. Understand that. You'll understand life, and you will understand why you cannot blame them that criticize you, for that is to live in fear and survivalism. I am telling you the truth, to go inwards into God, the basis of yourself, and only then can you really do away with anti-Semitism once and for all. Let it be known that Zionism is very close to nationalism. It hangs on the edge of nationalism. That is where temptation comes in and where we ultimately go wrong.